You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Ya lo hacen, pierna derecha, directo al arco, ¡golazo! 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 ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about a beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Kevin, before we get going today, I want to offer my sincere congratulations to Peru for qualifying for the Rio Olympics in volleyball. It's an historic achievement for them. I really want to offer my sincere congratulations to that great volleyball squad. I think that they're in with a medal chance. Your thoughts?
Yes, I know this tournament is probably not important enough and that goal not important enough, but we have a hand of God part 2.
No. That's it. That's the volleyball spike of what's your lesser? What's like the least important disciple? Maybe we'll go with that. Maybe
I can't even
religious.
name one, so don't ask me the 12th one.
Okay, that's the volleyball spike of Peter. We'll call it. All right. No, that's look. Obviously, that Peru got away with something last night. That has led today to a lot of banter about the video replay, about whether that was just and fair, all that sort of stuff that we'd like to talk about in sports. And that was the Soccer Today question of the day. By the way, I'm Duane Rollins, Kevin Laramee. You know us by now. The Soccer Today question of the day, Kevin, is what should soccer do about video replay? And I gave 4 options. It should be available for any call. It should be available on goals and penalties only. Manager's challenge, kind of like a flag thing like you see in football, or we should keep it the hell out of the game. I'll give those results in a minute, but what are your thoughts basically on that before we give the results to the people?
Oh, that's a good question. Video replay in soccer. The biggest difference for me than other sports is because soccer is a sport that it's uninterrupted, except for 15 minutes at halftime. Usually during the run of play, during the game itself, it's an ebb and flow, a constant movement. It always moves. It doesn't stop, which is different than all the video replay sports we're used to. Go from golf to hockey, by American football, going to baseball. Video replay always happen between plays in the dead of play. That doesn't exist in soccer. How do you implement video replay in a sport that it doesn't stop? Well, you have to look at what's in the world, what they do. The only example that I think can correlate to this one is the rugby one. And there is some rugby play that are video replay, especially for kicks, to make sure that it goes through the posts. Maybe that's the idea, but video replay does have or at least some sort of definitive answer to a call. May that video replay, goal line technology, Hawkeye, a satellite, Google Earth that's watching the game from up top to call offsides, I don't know. But for sure, there is a tool that can be used to objectify a call when there is doubt.
Sure, there is. Maybe, because if you watch other sports, they don't always, get clear answers anyway, and sometimes we're still left frustrated by the call because we see something on the video replay that obviously isn't being seen by the officials. And generally speaking, in North American sport, at least what they've done so far is it has to be clear that the call on the field was incorrect for them to overturn it. So even if it seems pretty obvious that they were wrong, they often don't overturn it. So I'm not too sure what it does. As I get older, Kevin, I increasingly get into the get off my goddamn lawn sort of style of this and keep this the hell out of the game. That's where I come with this right now. I'm more and more getting less and less inclined to be patient towards video replay in any sport, let alone the sport where it makes the least amount of sense, and that's this one. Anyway, that said, let's give the people their moment, though, and this is what they have responded. There is a majority, I would say, well, there is a clear majority, but 2/3 that do want some form of video replay. Keep in mind that this poll probably is biased to a North American audience. I think you might see it differently if you had a poll that had more European followers taking part in. But the reaction that I got to the answer this morning, to the question this morning, was this: it's available for anything. Only 11% said that. I think most people understand that it would be a bit absurd to have random fouls in the middle of the play called. I don't know how that would even work. Goals and penalties only 44%. That is the majority response in this poll, almost a real majority, but the biggest response in this. A manager's challenge, 16% said that. Even that, when you think about it, the logistics of it, I'm not sure how that works when you throw a handkerchief on the field and suddenly have to stop everything wherever the play is. Managers might start to use that for their advantage. Oh, they're on attack. There's the flag. That kind of thing. And then you can keep it out of the game. There's 29%. So a very, very significant minority is wanting it completely out of the game. And that's where we came from that, Kevin. We're going to open the lines up a little bit later on the show. If you want to call us and talk about that a little bit more, or tweet us at @SportsPodNet, go ahead. We'll include those thoughts in there. But let's move to the actual play on the field yesterday, and that would be that Peru-Brazil game. Brazil out. That is the other storyline here. That's why this is getting the waves that it is, I think, because it has eliminated one of the biggest draws in this tournament. It's eliminated one of the biggest names in world football. There's a question of how serious they took this tournament, Kevin, but regardless, they're out. Peru is in as group winners right now. What are your thoughts on Brazil's overall performance and whether or not this says anything about them?
I think it says more about the tournament itself. Maybe Brazil were not necessarily taking this tournament with all that's going on in the world of Brazil right now. We're looking at the Olympics. We're looking at a soccer tournament for the Olympics that Brazil takes very seriously. Having slotted Neymar to be one of the three overage players for the Brazil U23 side, they do take this tournament as their main focus for this summer. So the COPA was just an added distraction, and that's how it looked for Brazil on the pitch. They never really got going in this tournament, Duane, and the result last night, well, yes, they might have been hardly done by a handball, but they still didn't score a goal to warrant them a chance to victory in this game. So, you know what, at the end of the day, they didn't score enough. Brazil didn't play like Brazil, and Brazil is going home.
Yeah, look, I think this is the weakest generation they've had in a while. That's pretty clear. And the 7-1 Germany smackdown sort of illustrated that more than anything else. Certainly more than anything that would happen in this tournament here, a tournament that I'm not too sure that they fully take seriously. They obviously want to win it more than they want to lose it, but nonetheless, they weren't prioritizing it fully by the virtue of Neymar not being there. You can't really judge Brazil, in my opinion, until after the Olympic tournament, and we'll have lots to say on that one while we're watching it during the Olympics on 5 Rings Daily, which will happen during that time. But until that time occurs, I think that we have to take a slight step back and appreciate the fact that Peru got through and that Ecuador got through this group. And these are two programs that I think maybe sometimes get underrated in the northern part of the Americas anywhere, where we just don't look at them as being big name programs and just kind of dismiss them, but ignore the amount of talent that's everywhere in South America. These are programs now that they're in a quarterfinal stage that absolutely could make some noise in this tournament, particularly Peru. Now they're the number one seed. Any thoughts on that before we move on to the rest of COPA in this first segment?
No, it's interesting to me, this tournament, too, because not every team, when you're looking at the standings of the COPA, really Mexico, the one that stands out. Now it's only one group left to decide today. Chile and Panama in Group D are going to fight for the last spot coming out. Argentina already clinched. In this tournament, a couple of teams that we were expecting to be a lot better didn't. I think about Uruguay. I'm not necessarily disappointed by Bolivia. We expected this performance by Bolivia, but if you go Brazil, Uruguay, or Costa Rica, are probably the big deception of this tournament. And I wasn't expecting Brazil to be that deception.
There you go. The other thing that is to choose is the Group C has been decided in terms of who is advancing. Mexico and Venezuela are advancing, but we still do need to decide which order they finish. They play tonight at 8 o'clock, and that will decide the 1-2, which will help with the matchups. And then, of course,
both on 2 wins, Venezuela and Mexico on 2 wins, Uruguay, Jamaica. No points in this tournament, and if you're looking at Jamaica, a differential of -3, same as Uruguay. So for Jamaica, you can always say that, hey, so far, we're exactly having the same type of tournament as Uruguay. So for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, well, there's interesting sort of dynamic here too, is whether you would rather lose that game tonight, because the loser of it goes in. Well, I guess you're going to have to play better, play Argentina, but the winner the loser would have to play Argentina. But you are in a potential semifinal with the United States and Ecuador, and I think that Mexico or Venezuela might look at that as an easier touch than it would be with Colombia as a likely representative in that other semifinal. I don't know if they think that much ahead, and sorry to American fans to include you in that, but I'm just trying to think how they might be thinking.
And what's the expression, Wayne? He who chooses worst.
Yeah, well, sure. That sounds like I've never heard that expression, but it's probably true in sports context for sure. If you're trying to choose your opponent, trying to be too cute, you often get bit in the butt. No doubt about that, Kevin. This had two quarterfinal matchups that already set: the United States, Ecuador, the U.S. After that sort of slump in the first game where they sort of had had it handed to them by Colombia. They turned it around and got it done, and this is what we said earlier in this tournament with the U.S.'s ability to sort of step it up when their back is against the wall. I'm not too sure that they always come up and go up with their full effort when their back isn't against that wall, and that's problematic to me, and I would question whether they would feel as pinned in a quarterfinal with Ecuador, who might be an easier touch in their mind. So I would look at that as a bit of a banana peel game for the U.S. in this tournament, but nonetheless, if you'd given them this option in the lead up to the tournament that they would be playing Ecuador with an opportunity to go to the semifinals, where they'll likely play, you think Argentina would be your person, you're the team you'd most likely think you're going to meet in Houston there. I think most American fans would have taken that.
Exactly, and I'm quite impressed by the performance of the United States in the last two games of the group stage. A lot of goals scored, especially in the second one, in the 4-0 victory. But for the United States, what impressed me is, well, Dempsey decided to show up. You have, even though they had the Yedlin with the yellow and straight red, they were able to hold on to win the 1-0 victory in the last group stage game to propel them forward and give them a chance not only to be in a quarterfinal, but to have an opponent that they can match well, or at least think they can and have a shot at victory. It's going to be not necessarily easy. Ecuador can beat the United States, but the United States can beat Ecuador as well. And that's where it gets interesting. It would have been a different task altogether if Messi was the task in the group stage to begin with. So now Ecuador is a opponent that the United States can feel comfortable with, that yes, they will have to play a good game and be mindful of their defense, but it's not Messi.
Exactly. And Messi, we should mention, with the hat trick in a relief appearance.
He's got it.
Yeah, so much for the theory that maybe he wasn't going to give it his all in this tournament. I'll put my hand up and say
I'll raise my hand. I'll raise my hand. I'll say mea culpa, and it took him 45 minutes.
Yeah. Very impressive 5-0 win there. Argentina got to be the favorite at this point, based on that performance, based on a lot of things. Although an Argentina-Colombia, not to discount Peru in that quarterfinal matchup with the Colombians, but an Argentina-Colombia matchup has got to have a lot of people drooling, and a lot of people in Chicago in particular that have tickets for that. That would be one heck of a game in the semifinal stage. So we're getting into the nitty-gritty of this tournament just as the Euro gets kicked off. So obviously this will be a very tight shows in the days ahead on Soccer Today. But right now, we're going to move out of the COPA, come in and have an interview out of this break and be Euro-focused for the rest of the show. Let's take a quick break now, Kevin.
You are listening to SPN Radio, powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
You're listening to Soccer Today on SPN Radio. You can find the on-demand version of this very show on iTunes, Stitcher, Feedburner, Podbay Player, Podbean, anywhere you get your podcasts under the Sports Podcasting Network feed. Subscribe to our YouTube page to make sure you never miss a live show talking about soccer today, the MLS post-game show, open lines after dark, Five Rings Daily during the Olympics. Make sure you subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter at SportsPodNet and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
And welcome back to Soccer Today. Duane Rollins with Kevin Laramee. Joining us from Marseille is Brad Humber. He's an associate producer for Sportsnet Soccer. He's over there enjoying the tournament. Brad, thanks for taking some time today.
No problem. My pleasure.
As we say, you're in the place that everyone's talking about over the weekend and today in Marseille. You were there. Just lay the land of what the city was like heading into that game. We'll talk about the game itself and what happened in the stands after, but what was it like before the game there?
Well, we arrived on a Friday night, the night before the game. And when we arrived, we were staying right in the viewport. So it's basically the harbor area where all the scenes you can see, on Twitter, the media and everything. Basically, when we arrived, we didn't even see any violence. It was just, a lot of English, like outnumbering Russians, I would say, by 10-1 at least. And it just was one big party. We were walking around, didn't see any type of violence that the night before. I don't know why we kind of missed them, but it was just like hit or miss. Like something would happen for about 10 minutes and then it would squash. So there's two sides of the fort, basically. There's one side which has all the hotels and hotel bars, and the other side of the fort is basically a strip of Irish bars, English bars, and that's where basically all the English congregated, mingling outside, chanting, but not in any type of, we didn't see any type of, combative chanting or, I guess, trying to start trouble. And then the day of the game yesterday, we went down to the viewport around 5 o'clock, I would say. Did not see anything. We got on the metro just before, I guess they brought in water cannons and everything, and we basically missed, the Russian, ultras that seemed to just kind of, the pictures you've seen are the pictures I've seen. We didn't unfortunately see it, or I guess fortunately didn't, wasn't a part of it. But from everything that we saw, it seemed to be just one big party.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that if you were a tourist there or someone who weren't interested in that period, if you stayed out of those flashpoint areas, that you could have stayed fairly safe in the city?
Exactly. There were lots of places where you could kind of tell as well, like bars were absolutely rammed, like with English fans. But if you were there with a family, or if you were there with your kids, or if you're just, I wouldn't say a casual fan, but still a good fan of the team, you knew to keep your distance and be like, okay, just don't go in that area, and there's nothing. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be safe. That's what we did. We found some other bars along the viewport, mingled with a lot of very jovial, fun English fans. Just they were happy to be there for the game. It's hard to say whether some of the English fans that were causing the trouble even had tickets to the game. My guess is probably not. They just, took the 6-hour ride down and set up at a party on the harbor. And, if we have to, mix it up with somebody, we'll mix it up. So
Brad, when you're looking at the violence in the stands at the end of the game and following the game on Saturday, what are the feelings today in Marseille? What are the after the fact opinions of people? Is there an outrage? Is there a worry that both teams will be either not as much as disqualified, but do have penalties against them and do have some suspensions and fines? What is the feeling in Marseille right now?
It's very quiet right now. Very, very quiet. Everything just seems to, I guess, most of the English have moved on from last night. But regarding, the sanctions that, I just read it on Twitter, about an hour ago. But the English, they don't feel like, they don't feel like it's going to go through or those kind of problems will happen again. My only worry is that, talking to some English fans here, is that apparently Russia's next game is in Lille, which is a very short train ride away from Lens, where England plays their next game versus Wales. And in Lens, there's a 24-hour ban on alcohol before and after the match. So the town is pretty much going to be dry. And after seeing the scenes, in Marseille, if you're an owner of a bar in Lens, why even, just take a day off? You'll be making a lot of money, but is it really even, worth it for that kind of hassle? But like I said, UEFA has told people, don't go to the fan zone in Lens because it's so small. Go to Lille. However, in Lille, that's where Russia is. So it'll be interesting to see,
round two.
Come back to what happens. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately. And the other question that I do have, Brad, is when you're looking at this rise or resurgent, is it a resurgent of this word, hooliganism? Is this a resurgent of this movement, or is just a flashpoint, or just a flash in the pan, and just an event that happened because of the circumstances of the Russian ultras fans and mixed with English fans that retaliated? Was it this aspect, or is it a resurgence of hooliganism?
I think it's a one-off, to be quite honest. I think it was, and it might have even just been, kind of a copycat from, I believe it was 98 when England was last down here, and they played Tunisia, I believe, in the World Cup, and it was the same kind of stuff happened. There was, massive, clashes between Tunisian and English fans, and I just kind of think that, the English, 20, some odd years, 25 plus years later, have just kind of said, oh, let's go down and, recreate this. Who knows, but honestly, I don't see it as being something that's going to plague this tournament going forward.
It's sort of like the Vancouver Canucks fans back after the last.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, they came in, they destroyed the place. Unfortunately, we've seen things about, major injuries. I mean, there was some stuff on Twitter last night that somebody got pushed in front of a train, but, that was all kind of just, nonsense, put out there just to scare people. But honestly, if you have a good sense in your head, you'll know the areas just to stay away from. So you do the places to stay away from and just kind of, protect your space.
Fair enough, Brad. You mentioned that you ran into a lot of jovial English fans. So I'm just wondering, because a lot of people are worried about the Russian aspect of this and talking about organized violence and that. Did you see many sort of, we'll call them normal Russian fans around there that you were interacting with, or was it pretty much just the ultras?
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of people that we actually, after the game, I was happy to, shake hands. I mean, obviously I was cheering for England, so a little bit disappointed, obviously, in the result. But, I think the whole tournament, the point of the tournament is, to, mix it up and enjoy the two different cultures or the cultures of, every team that's there. So I was going around shaking hands with, saying good game to the Russians. They didn't speak much English, but they understood, and I noticed it even on trains and stuff like that. You would see, people holding doors for people trying to get in trains, and just mingling. It was just this very small part of, unfortunately, one kind of group that just wanted just to, start trouble. But for the most part, everyone that I've seen was just mixing and getting on well.
All right, we'll let you back to your holiday after one more quick question. What the hell was Joe Hart doing at the end there?
Joe Hart being Joe Hart. It's English keepers, it seems like, in international tournaments. I really can't put words to it. It almost reminded me, while being a season ticket holder for TFC, it was just like, that you're there, and then all of a sudden, we got a minute left, and TFC, as I like to say, 2012 all over again.
That's the TFC. Well, they at least got the point.
That's so England, I guess you can say.
Yeah, there you go. That's so England. All right, Brad, we'll let you get back to your holiday. We appreciate I'd say stay safe, but I think that you are staying safe, and we shouldn't probably overplay that side of things.
Yeah, very much so. It's, as long as you keep your space, keep your head on straight, and as long as you're not looking to go into somewhere where trouble could be, you'll be fine.
All right, Brad. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
Thanks again to Brad for joining us, Kevin. What do you say about that? I mean, it's obviously any thinking human being is going to be like, come on, guys, get it together. But
yeah, no, since Saturday, when I've been watching a lot of videos online, different outlets, different sources to really get a picture, get a view of who were fighting, what was going on. And it was organized. When you see fans coming up with gloves, mouthpiece, chains, I've seen chair shots, literally chair shots. It was organized in a certain fashion. And one group shows up of over 300 people, the other one's about 20. You're just about looking for a carnage, and that's what happened at the port side. Of course, if you take every media that's been talking about it, it has been blown out of proportion a little bit. But in certain flashpoints, in certain scenes, locally, a small, like in one example, a plaza in Marseille, it would have looked bad. But as a whole, it's very secure so far. But in some flashpoint, literally flash fights, that's how I like to describe them. It happened, boom, it lasted for a couple minutes, and then it was dispersed. But yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, look, Brad mentioned the reports of like people being thrown in front of trains, things like that.
That's exaggerated a little bit.
Yeah, and I was actually at a League One Ontario game, the local league here that I work for. And people were talking about that like it was fact at the time, and that's just how these rumors started in the world of social media. I mean, they always used to start back in the day. Just 4 days later, we would have heard these stories, and then 6 days later, after they would have been disputed, right?
Yeah, to be fair, one England supporter was stabbed, so there was one guy at least came into the fight with a knife, which is. Yeah. It escalated quickly. Yes, it's a shame, and it's sad. That's what we're talking about the Euro since Friday, is the hooliganism and the weird pop. And you know what? I'm happy because you watched the same game as I did on Saturday, and you heard that pop at around the 85th minute, and not seeing the fireworks on the TV screen because I was looking at the play on the pitch. We didn't know what's going on, so we're all kind of worried. But it was a firework that was thrown from the Russian section to the England section. Across the pitch on top, it was kind of a spectacular in a very negative side of that word, spectacular, and that's what's sad to me. It's the stands. What happened in the stand is more sad to me in 2016, where supporters attacked another rival supporters group, and those people had to run, jump fences. It was a risk of trampling, and that's what scared me. That's what told me there was something going on wrong. When you watch the end of the England-Russia game after the final whistle, you hear Joe Hart say, "Stay here, stay safe," to his family in the stands. Unfortunately, Vardy's wife wasn't the case. She was involved in people shoving, trying to get out, and she was at the same spot. But it was unsafe in the stands for England supporters because of that and because of the trampling. And if you know your history about soccer, especially this year, it's kind of a shame that we have seen that in the stands.
Hansel and all that in Hillsborough, and obviously Hillsborough is a different situation altogether, but we've had stadium disasters. But yeah,
exactly. Just a trampling and people rushing, trying to jump fences to get out of it. It just doesn't bring good memories to mind seeing those images.
Yeah, look, the main talking point here, we're going to move it on the pitch in a minute, but you can't ignore the rest of the world and stuff like this when we're having a show like this. The main talking point that we need to focus on is that 2018 is coming up and Russia's hosting this team, and we have Russian officials. There was a Russian member of the Moscow Football Association board that was encouraging them. Yeah, he was
the Russian director of sports.
Yeah, go lad. Like, there's a tweet out there that say, basically it's translated, so we're doing a bit of phone tag here, but it was nonetheless, but basically the understanding is it said something along the lines of, why are we criticizing them? They're defending the flag. Way to go, lads, keep it up. Come on. I mean, this is the country that's going to be hosting the World Cup in 2018. It doesn't really give a lot of people, and other things I'm seeing, there's a lot of people that are going, well, maybe I was thinking of going to Russia and giving it a chance, but now that I'm seeing this, I'm like, nah, I'm just going to stay home and watch it on TV. And that's ultimately going to be what happens. It's unless you're directly involved, unless, you're a team, let's say, like we are, like Canada, were to qualify for this tournament somehow, we'd want to go because we haven't had the opportunity to do that. But if you're a nation that goes consistently, why would you bother? You know that 4 years later you can go to one, maybe 8 years later.
Maybe win another one after, but it's the risk factor that it's there too. But again, we don't want to stress the point that it's not as bad so far as described by the media. But if you were present during that fight, it did look that bad. So that's the hard way to analyze that situation. You need to look at it as a whole and not just in a microcosm. And yes, there has been incidents. And yes, there has been one person stabbed, two that were in critical condition, now stable. So fortunately, there's no death. Unfortunately, there is some injuries that will have sequels for the sequels remaining ill effect for the injured persons probably for a long time. But it's a shame, and I would have loved to talk about the England-Russian draw and the late equalizer by Russia. But after this first full day of event in France, of games, the first full day of the calendar of events, we're all like, it's a shame that we're just hooliganism and we're all like worried, and that's the feeling that was dominating Saturday night.
Exactly. All right. I think I'm going to move it onto the pitch now for the next 10 minutes in the segment, and we'll open those lines up. If you want to talk to us about the Euro, want to talk to us about video replay, about Peru, about Brazil, COPA's US's performance, anything you really want to. It is a Euro COPA focused thing. But if you have an MLS question, we'd take that as well. Or NASL, the NASL title to India 11. Nice little miracle comeback there. And if you're listening to Solitudes today, we'll have some more coverage on that in that show today and on our podcast. So any questions you want, if you want to open it up, Kevin, you want to give the numbers out, and then we'll just turn it on the pitch and we'll sort of go to group by group that's happening so far.
778-400 SPN1. That's 778-400-7761.
All right, like I said, anything you want. That's Kevin and I, though. We haven't had a chance to have a show since the tournament started, since Euro started, so we haven't really talked about any games yet. So we'll go all the way back to Friday, which now seems like a lifetime ago almost, in that France-Romania game. Was a hell of a start to the tournament. I really enjoyed that game. And, you're always going to enjoy the first game to a certain extent, but I thought that it was a compelling game, and it was largely a compelling game because Romania showed up and made it a game, and they were not rolling over for the host country, and the 2-1 went on the miracle strike. What a goal.
Dimitri Payet, we've seen him in Aston Villa this year score a couple of free kicks that were mind-blowing. The fact that how many bends he put in that ball, the way it moves, dips, it's like a butterfly type of ball, and just keeper can do nothing about it. But we've seen this now on the run of play in the Euro for a game-winning goal, the first one of the tournament for Dimitri Payet at about late in the close to the 80th minute around this time, and Payet breaking down of emotion, the pressure, the excitement of having scored a goal for his country on home soil in Stade de France. He couldn't take it. The emotion were overflowing, especially in his tears, and he was proud, he was happy, and he couldn't believe what he has just done for his national team.
A player that had been left off in the past.
Exactly.
And you said Villa, he's with West Ham, of
West
course.
Ham, exactly. It's the same damn jersey.
Mixing the jersey stuff, yes. At any rate, it was my first. I tweeted at the time. It was my first hand over the mouth moment. You know how like you instinctively go, "Oh my God, what did I just see?" That's how I reacted to that goal, and it was a great way to start the tournament. But again, I don't want to discount Romania's performance because I thought that they really impressed me, and I came out of that thinking, okay, I think I've underrated them a little bit, and then you take that to the following morning, Switzerland, Albania, which perhaps was the weakest game of the weekend so far.
But even then, if you look at that with hindsight, Albania only conceded 1 to Switzerland, and that can come back to be really positive for Albania. If they ever score a goal, the differential will be like not that bad, and it could have been a 4-0 blowout. But so far, the 24-year-old way, no blowouts.
Exactly. It's been a very close tournament. Part of that's tactical. Part of that's maybe that there's no great strikers left in the world anymore. Some people might argue, but by and large, I think we're seeing some good performances nonetheless if you enjoy your tactical football. Switzerland, Romania, a lot of people came away with that. They will play next. That game, I think a lot of people think will decide second place in that group, even though they would only be tied if Romania were to get that. And Switzerland over France seems unlikely. Romania over Albania doesn't seem as unlikely. So lots to chew on there. Again, Piat, Giroud, France, though, I think that they did live up. As much as I want to talk about Romania, I think they did live up to a billing as the tournament favorite, though, and it's certainly a great way to start the tournament.
And you don't want to start a tournament either with a performance against a team and 8-0 and have a false overconfidence with your team. They had to work hard to beat Romania. They had the pressure of the first game, the home advantage situation, and they dealt with it. They have I don't want to say questionable because it has a bad connotation to it, but the players that Didier Deschamps chose did create some controversy. And this win is almost vindication, almost a clean slate for Didier Deschamps saying, look, guys, wait for it. Wait till I give you the results. Let me choose the players I do believe are the best fitting for a team, and we will see where that leads us going forward. And with that victory, he gave his critics maybe the benefit of the doubt for him and to leave him alone during this tournament while he coaches that team.
Yeah. To finish summarizing the group before we move to Group B's play, I think all 4 teams can actually walk away from the first day of play feeling somewhat positive. France obviously got the win, played well, the wonder of goal. Switzerland, as much as they didn't play spectacularly, still has 3 points on the board, so you can't be upset about that. Romania, as I said, the noble battler in that first game, they have to think that, especially I've been watching Switzerland the next day, that they have a great chance to advance. And Albania, the rank outsiders, you know what? They only lost 1-0, and they did battle to the end and could have maybe got one in there. And their fans seem to show up in numbers and enjoy themselves. There's lots of video out there of the Albanians celebrating after the fact because they're just happy to be there. But I think that they also perform well. I remember going way back to when I was a kid watching Canada in '86, and they lost 1-0 to France in the first game, and feeling like that was almost a win. And I suspect Albanians might feel similar with a very close loss to start their tournament, and they might feel that they have a chance against Romania as well. So I think lots to sort of to look at in that Group A, and lots to enjoy about that. So let's move to Group B. We did already talk about England.
Group B for what? For Bale?
For Bale and for baffling sometimes if you want to talk about the goalkeeping at the end of the England game.
Joe.
I watched Joe Clark. That's a former Canadian Prime Minister.
Yeah, that's a different Joe.
I watch Joe Hart all the time for Manchester City, obviously. He can be incredibly infuriating and incredibly, you'd love him sometimes and you just want to punch him sometimes or strangle him. I always joke that he's like going to be the if they had a poster child for Ritalin in the UK, that it might be Joe Hart. He kind of is like a big overgrown kid with ADHD sometimes. That's how I take him, and certainly waving his hand in the air offside and watching the ball float into the final corner. Come on, Joe, put your damn hand down and tend the goal. That was what I was thinking.
Stop complaining. Stop trying to do the fourth official's job and just stop the damn ball from going in the net.
Exactly.
Let's go back to the beginning of this game, though. Eric Dyer, a star is born for England in this tournament. The way that penalty was set up, the free kick was set up, when it's interesting. Eric Dyer is the one who takes the ball, that sets it up. But Harry Kane is the one that gestures, that makes movement, that goes talk to people. He's the one that sets up on the ball, knowing that he's not going to take that free kick. But when he goes over the ball, for once, I don't think it never works, but for once, a dummy run made the wall shift just ever so slightly to the right of the kicker, leaving the left side of the goal open. Eric Dyer curls it right there, and there's a goal. This kick, this movement, it was set up with.
Yeah, no, it was nicely played. And look, we can look at the last minute, that So England moment that we had in there, and kind of laugh. But I thought overall, if you look at the full 90 in its entirety, the English have to be somewhat happy with it, because they did look like the better team throughout that game. And if it were not for that moment of madness at the end, they would have been tied with Wales at the top. And they do have that opportunity in the next game, the Home Nations Derby, which is taking place on June 16th. They do have an opportunity to overtake Wales to top that group. Obviously, depending on the results, if the Russians were to get a win, we'd have to go to Goldev. But nonetheless, England does have it in their court still. So they're not all is lost. It just kind of seems that way because, it's England and they win points and et cetera, et cetera.
But still, that free kick. And then you go back to just before that, the Wales game, where Gareth Bale, but not just Bale, Robson, Cano, and Ramsey in midfield were very important in the win of Wales over Slovakia. So it's important for Wales to have a result. And, for a team like Wales, that it's their first presence in forever in a major tournament, it's important for them to start the right way. And if you're just waiting for a goal for a win after one or two games, you're setting yourself up for a lot of comparisons against England and the other team in your group. Now with this victory, you're leading your destiny. And if for some reason you beat England or Russia, you're moving on. And for Bale and the rest of the team, it may be ideal scenario right now.
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, in the previous show on Friday, I called them the fourth place team in this group. I thought that they were the weakest team here based on their form leading in, and I thought that Bale was tired, and I thought that Bale might not be able to step it up in this game, and he proved me wrong in the first game at any rate. Slovakia was a very kind of sexy underdog pick for a lot of people too, so this was full measure for Wales. There's a great video, too, if you want to look in the Cardiff. They had a City Centre viewing surface out there. I retweeted it yesterday on my Twitter account. It's wonderful to watch the reaction of the Welsh fans that had gathered in Cardiff to watch that game, how they just, 50 years of emotion pours out on one goal. So it was kind of lovely to see that way as well. The thing about having best third-place teams in this tournament, too, advancing in this tournament, is that Wales really kind of has to look at the rest of this lineup, the other two games they have, and say, I think if I won one point, we're probably going to have a chance to go to the round of 16. They're going to want more, but nonetheless, 1 point is a big buffer. Having those three in the bank matters a great deal for them, especially when England dropped the points in there as well. So they would have to think that if they were to hold the English to that draw, that they're sitting pretty at that point. So good for Wales, as I said. Kevin, let's take a quick break now, come back, and we'll break down the rest of the Euro tournament and take it from there.
You are listening to SPN Radio, powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
Give us a call. Studio line 778-400-SPN1. That's 778-400-SPN1. Give us a call right now. Lines are open.
Let's move it to Das Germans. Das Germans. Aye, aye. They won.
They won, but it wasn't as easy as expected. Or maybe it was as expected. A German team that is not necessarily as powerful offensively. Well, they are. They just couldn't finish, really, to be honest.
Yeah, and look, it's been the tournament. I know not every game's ended 1-0, but it's felt that way. It has been that kind of tournament so far. Certainly that German game was 1-0 until stoppage time when the Germans just efficiently went down and scored a goal in the break. Some people were comparing, the difference between Germany and England is illustrated in back-to-back days with the English clinging onto a 1-goal lead at stoppage time. They complete a brain fart and drop the goal. The Germans, they go down to score. That's kind of the difference in the programs in many ways. So,
and is that service? Well, let's face it. We've talked about covering your mouth moment with the goal of Payet. That service by Ozil on the Masafi goal, Duane, was quite impressive. When you look at it in slow motion and with the right camera angle that the TV broadcast did show, you're right behind him. And you see his vision, and you see the ball being hit, and just passes over all the yellow heads, and the white head comes on it, and there's a goal. It's just perfectly placed. Those are the important moments. Set pieces, we talk about set pieces and how important they are, because when on the run of play, both teams are equivalent. Sometimes it's the skills on the dead ball that can be the difference maker. And when you're not having your best day on the pitch and you have a set piece, it's the opportunity for your team to show what they have practiced. And we've seen that from one of the best teams in the world, defending world champion, Germany.
Yeah, and look, nothing to suggest that they're not going to be in this tournament a long time in that game. That's what I'd come away with. I think the key to any first game for a major power in the tournament is to get the rust off, to make sure you get flowing, and to ensure you get 3 points, to not necessarily worry too much about the overall look of the game, and just make sure you get the result right there so that you don't get yourself in trouble, because in the past we have seen some bigger nations that sort of get in a negative flow. The Italians jumped in mind for a couple French too. The Italians and the French both famously have some World Cups, some Euros where they've just bailed out, where they've never gotten going. So I think the Germans just avoided any questions about that by getting the result right off the hop. The other game in that group, Poland and Northern Ireland, look, the Northern Irish are plucky. They're a team that, make that third Canada reference for the show. They're a team that reminds me of what Canada might look like in a major tournament, where they're going to have to rely on hard work and effort and all those great intangibles to have a chance. They had it all there. Poland is, again, one of those sexy underdog picks. They did just enough 51st minute goal to secure the win. And, I think that the top two teams in that group did sort of shine out and illustrate that in the first day of play.
No, they really did, Wayne. And it's really, for me, important to have, Croatia as well has impressed me a lot. It was yesterday, Sunday. So
yes.
Croatia with the volley of Modric. You've talked about covering your mouth moments, Wayne. That volley of Modric, when you look at it in slow motion with the very far away camera angle, you see the ball going up in the air, but you see Modric's eyes locked on that ball from the moment that it leaves the defender's foot all across on the air and hits it about a foot off the ground right into the net. Oh, it was a lot of good goals this year so far. There's 4 goals of the tournament candidate after the first weekend.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that has to do with tactical awareness, and they have to, in order to break teams down, you have to score wonder goals. You have to shoot from outside the box a lot more, right? You're trying to open things up a little bit more. I called Group D my favorite group. I thought it was maybe the most talented group, top to bottom, that was in this tournament. I think the first day of play, over 2 days, but you know what I mean. The first round of games sort of illustrated that they were, I think, the best games of the tournament, both the Turkey, Croatia, and the Spain, Czech Republic game this morning. Yeah, Modric, I felt like a genius, because I had said that he might be the breakout player in this tournament. Not that he plays for Real Madrid. How much can he really break out? But you know what I mean.
Well, it's because of his position, and he's not a goal scorer. He's a setup type of man. And what he does best, what I've talked about in our preview last Friday as well, I'm not want to put myself in the genius talk like you, but he is controlling the midfield, the pace, the ball. And whenever he gets the ball, there's always a ton of space in front of him. And that's not by coincidence. That's by design, by himself. He's able to put himself in a position when he gathers the ball to be effective with it, to have the space to do something with it. Because he's the type of player that if you overcrowd him, he doesn't have the same amount of vision available. When you watch him play in the midfield, there's always a ton of space before him because everybody's afraid. Everybody leaves him space, and he just takes advantage of it. And in a team with Real Madrid, in a league that he does have that second, third, more second on the ball, take a decision, same thing applies here. And that's why, for me, he's the type of player that could take advantage, if not finishing himself. Launch is Croatian, and we have seen Cerna hit the bar. We have seen other Croatian players hit the bar serviced by Modric, and that is what impressed me the most, if not even more than his goal.
Yeah, and having watched the first two games, that game and the game this morning, I am very excited for June 21st. Hopefully there's some things in the line for that one. That's when Croatia plays Spain, because I thought Spain this morning, Kevin, were breathtaking. I know that Spain can be frustrating to people because of the way they play, and people make the mistake. They think tiki-taka is a offensive system. It's not. It's a defensive system. It's designed to suffocate the game, to make the other team chase for 90 minutes and then wear them down and score.
It's made for you to always have the ball, short passes, and it's the one important aspect of tiki-taka is you need to have the ball. If you don't have the ball, you can't play that way. Maybe that's the only way you can counter Spain, is trying to do the same yourself and not let them have the ball, which is easier said than done. But you're right. Croatia, Spain will be interesting to see what Croatia does tactically to stop that tiki-taka. And maybe there's a blueprint of Real Madrid, what Madrid does in the Liga, in the Champions League, to stop the tiki-taka, which is physical play and get that ball. And once you have it, you have an opportunity, you don't miss it. And guess what? The best midfielder for Real Madrid plays for Croatia. So it will be interesting to watch.
Yeah, the way to counter tiki-taka in my mind is there's two ways. You can either be resolute in defending like the Czechs tried to do today and look for one or two breaks and capitalize. That's a tough thing to do consistently. It might work in a tournament. It's the Greece approach. Greece won a whole, not necessarily against Spain, but they won a whole European Championship by doing resolute defending and taking advantage of a set piece or whatever. That's one approach to do it, and that might work on a short sprint, as I said, but over the course of a season, it rarely does. Likely, we're not having a season here, of course. The other way to do it is with very aggressive, high pressure, and to do lightning quick strikes on them. I think that's kind of how the Dutch took them down in the World Cup, is you pressure them so that they can't get that pace, you can't get that control, you don't sit back and defend, you get on them quickly. Problem with that one is it takes a lot of fitness to do it, and there's very few teams in the world that are able to effectively do that. But
and the other problem, Duane, is that the Dutch are not here.
Wow, I'm not sure they could have done it in this one either, but nonetheless.
It's crazy what 2 years can do.
Yes, exactly. All right, we are looking at our TV screens now in Ireland, and the Swedes are about to walk out. So we'll look to wrap up now so that you can watch that game. We will be on every day between 11 and noon. Well, there's a game on at noon, so that you can watch those games and still listen to us. That you don't need to sacrifice any of your football watching, because that makes no sense, Kevin. But before we do say goodbye, let's quickly set up the fact that we have Two Solitudes today. As I said, we're going to talk a little bit about Indy 11's remarkable spring season turnaround and victory there. The expansion franchise from just a few years ago won its first championship, the spring championship of the NASL. We'll have that on Two Solitudes, which will be out probably later today or early tomorrow. And also, of course, we'll be back between 11 o'clock and 12 all this week to cover Euros and Copas all along. Kevin, give us the Patreon address and then say goodbye as we prepare to watch Sweden versus Ireland.
You can give us a follow on Twitter for the network at SportsPodNet. You can as well go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com and give us $1, $2 a month, whatever you seem and deem worthy for the Sports Podcast Network. We are working hard to give you high quality live and on-demand sports radio with a vision to be fulfilled. And with your help, we can achieve that vision. We have made great stride forward with your help over the last few months, and we can even do more. So with your support, we can achieve all our dreams. Isn't that like the goal of it all? Exactly. And until tomorrow on the Sports Podcast Network, where you can listen to as well Soccer Today, Euro After Show this weekend, Open Lines After Dark comes back next Saturday night, same as the MLS postgame show. Until then, for Duane Rollins, I am Kevin Laramee. Have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us sportspodcastingnetwork.com